right, so you're gonna start out laying down on your back with your knees bent, and we're just gonna start with some windshield wiper legs, letting your knees both drop to one side and then to the other. They don't have to stack. If you're worried about a neutral pelvis, you can bring your feet and your knees all the way together and then they stack that way, but you don't have to. After you've taken one more to each side, you'll let your knees come up to the ceiling. And we're gonna take your hands up to the ceiling. Palms are facing towards each other, and I want you to find your long spine against the mat so you feel a little bit like the sit bones are reaching away from the top of your skull. Your traps are a little relaxed so you have your broadest chest, and you're just gonna open your arms out wide into a T and then pick them back up to the ceiling. Let them come overhead like you were making an I, trying to think about those shoulders moving away from the ears. Goes back up towards the ceiling, and then your hands open up like a Y, like YMCA. Everyone remembers that one. Bring your hands back up to the ceiling, going back to that T. So arms open wide to the side, shoulder blades feel like they move towards your spine. Hands come back up to the ceiling and go overhead for your I. And then they come back up to the ceiling and open up like a Y. You have one more of these. We're just moving stuff around in the shoulders a little bit. So open like the T and hands back to the ceiling. They come overhead like an I, trying to keep the ribs from flaring too much towards the ceiling. And then you open like a Y. Arms will come down by your side, and then you're gonna roll onto your side. So roll to your right, and you're gonna set yourself up so your shoulders and your hips and your head are all in one straight line. Your elbows are bent, and you're gonna be having them around your head a little bit like a book. So both elbows come forward. And then you're gonna be rolling open from your shoulders, letting your gaze follow that top elbow and bringing it back 3 times. As you're moving, hips are trying to stay stacked. You're taking as much or as little twist as feels good to you. After this third one, the arms will go out long in front of you and they stack. Same thing, except now your gaze is gonna follow that top hand, and then you'll bring it back. 3 of these. Opening and closing, finding that twist in your spine. After you close your hands for the 3rd time, think that you're gonna move from your shoulder blade to reach the top hand further, and then you're gonna pull it back. 3 of these, just these little saws. They could be big or small. Again, we're just moving stuff around before we get started. Last one. Beautiful, and then you're gonna roll over to the other side because we have to do the exact same thing. So the hips will stack, the shoulders will stack, the elbows are bent forward, your hands are loosely touching the back of your head or the sides, and your opening gaze follows that top elbow. Trying to keep your hips stacked so that you get a fair amount of twist in your spine as you're moving. 3 of these. And then you'll let the arms come out long. The hands stack right on top of each other. Gaze follows the top hand as you rotate open and bring it back in. 3 here, paying attention to how much your neck is or isn't partaking in this movement. And after that 3rd one, we're just gonna move from the scapula or your shoulder blade. So as you reach forward, the shoulder blade moves up and then it moves back. 3 of these, they can be big saws or small saws, just moving through your shoulder. And after the 3rd one, you're gonna roll back onto your back. And we're gonna set up to do a little bit of bridging here. So heels should be roughly in line with where the head of the femur is in your hip socket, not the outside of your hips, but like actual head of the femur. Your feet are flat, you're pressing through big toe side, pinky toe side, and the heel of both feet. Arms can come down by your side. You could bend your elbows, if you don't mind showing them, Brad, so that you can find a little bit more upper back connection. If you want to challenge yourself, you can always take your hands to the ceiling, but you're still thinking that the shoulders pull back and down a little bit, so you're keeping this really connected upper back into the mat. So pick whichever one you want to do, Brad. And then we're going to start out with just some pelvis lifts. So you're gently rolling your pelvis up and off the mat, and lifting yourself up into your bridge and lowering yourself back down. So think a little squeeze between the inner thighs so those knees stay lined up with the hip joints. You're trying to peel yourself up and down. Can you find a little more length from the back of your neck, like you're reaching the head away? And then quiet the ribs a little bit so that you end up feeling like one long board from knees to shoulders, and bring it all the way down. Now I'm gonna have you hinge up 3 times. Same basic principle, except you're trying to stay long from shoulders to hips like a plank, so there's a lot more glute squeeze involved. Be mindful to keep a little squeeze between the thighs so that your knees aren't going out to the side to help you come up. 3 of these hinge bridges. And then you'll lay yourself all the way down. Take a second if you need to stretch, you need to roll around a little bit, and then we're gonna build on this a bit. So I'd like you to bring your hips up to your highest point, which doesn't find a back bend. Again, we're looking for that length from knee to shoulders. Toes push down into the mat, little squeeze from the inner thighs. Now, could you pick up your right leg into tabletop, thinking those hips stay the same height from the floor, and tap that foot back down to the floor? You got 5 of these. We're thinking the same length from armpit to hip, so you're actively stretching your sit bones away from you and wrapping those shoulders onto your back. After that 5th one, the foot comes down and you lower your hips all the way down. Take a second to reset. Maybe you need to take your neck out of it a little bit or move it side to side. We're gonna do the same thing with the other leg. So you come back up into your bridge, and then you're pushing down through the foot that remains connected to the mat as you lift and lower this leg from your hip for 5. Doing a great job keeping the hips lifted and breathing as you move. The foot comes down after that last one, and then you're gonna put your hips all the way down on the mat. Wonderful. Could you move your feet a little bit closer to each other? We're gonna come up one more time. So come up into your tallest bridge, find a little squeeze between the thighs, and you're actively working to push your pubic bone forward and pull your ribs down a little bit. Nice. From here, can you lower your hips only halfway down, keeping a little squeeze between the thighs, and go right back up? You got 5. You're going halfway down, back up. It's a lot of glute feeling. You have to feel the glute lengthen as you lower a little bit. 3rd time back up. 4th time, you get that squeeze to come back up. Last one, you come all the way up, and then you're gonna breathe as you lower your hips all the way back down to the mat. You okay? Good, okay. From here, I'm gonna have you flip over to all 4s. So you're gonna come to all 4s, and in this instance, we wanna think that you are putting your hands underneath your shoulders. Your knees are underneath your hip joints. So lean your hips forward and take your hands forward just a little bit. Good. And then I just need you to take a couple cat-cows here. So you're rounding the whole spine, including the low back. And then you're doing the same thing in opposition, trying to let your shoulders move away from your ears. Maybe you feel your tail push out behind you. Take 3 more of these. They can be big, they can be snaky. They're just cat-cows. No big deal. Nice, just moving through the spine. And when you finish your last one, I'm gonna have you come to seated so that you are facing one direction or the other. We're just gonna play with some half rollbacks here. So if you wanna come sit down and have your feet out in front of you. Beautiful, so bend your knees. You can take your feet wider if need be. And then your hands are gonna come out in front of you. So we're gonna try to roll backwards, which means you're trying to find yourself as tall as you can be on your sit bones, and then rolling and tipping a little bit back, and then trying to roll all the way back up. Good. If you need to bring your feet in closer, you can. Sometimes that changes depending on hamstring strength. And back up. And then roll yourself all the way down to the mat. Beautiful. Let your legs come out long. Let your arms settle down to the mat for just a second. Move your head from side to side. Just get a little twist in your neck. Be gentle with it. You're not whipping your hair back and forth. And then go ahead and bend your knees so that your feet can be flat on the mat again. Bring them in a little bit closer to you, Brad. So we're going to start with a little bit of your chest lift here. So the hands come up to the ceiling. And what we're focusing on here is maybe picking up to like the tip of your shoulder blade. But I'm not a big fan of chin to chest as rounded forward as you can get. We're thinking more about the height and keeping some length in your spine. So you find a pretty neutral pelvis, pubic bone, hip bone are reasonably level. You still have the natural curvature in your low back, but your ribs don't feel like they're gonna jump up towards the ceiling. So maybe you find a little heaviness in the back of your rib cage here. Shoulders are away from the ears. You find that little pull of shoulder blade towards spine. Take an inhale. When you exhale, you're picking up head, neck, and chest a small amount using that exhale, and then lay yourself back down. Try 3 more of these, just that little lift and back down. Good, your legs keep pressing down into the mat. Doesn't have to be the height. We're thinking that there's more length to the neck versus chin towards the chest in this instance. And you'll lay yourself all the way down. Take a second if you need it. Now we're going to alternate between a chest lift and a little pelvic lift. So you can take your hands behind your head if you want to, thinking that the elbows go wide and you're still pulling those armpits down towards your hips. If elbows wide is too bad on the shoulders, you can always take elbows forward. You're just still thinking shoulders move away from the ears. So find that pretty neutral pelvis. Take a big inhale. Exhale, you're gonna find your little bit of chest lift. And then you'll lay it back down. Your head, your shoulders get heavy against the mat, so does the back of the rib cage. You find a little squeeze between the inner thighs, all of your feet are rooting down into the mat, and you get that little tiny pelvic curl to lift your pelvis off the mat. So pubic bone starts to lift, and that's it. Come all the way down. On this next one, could you keep your toes down as you lift your pelvis? So think, you might have to bring your feet in a little closer. Yeah, that's better. And back down. So we're just alternating between the two. Chest lift, and then the hips lift. The hips have to come all the way down and kind of release that little bit for you to get that heaviness in the back of the ribs as you lift the chest and lay it back down. 1 more each way. Finding that little pelvis lift, and then just that little bit of chest lift. Lay yourself all the way down flat and stretch your arms and your legs out long. We're setting up for coordination on the mat next. So if you'd like, you can use a little ball behind your upper back to give you a little more lift, or you can just use your chest lift. Which would you prefer?
Chest lift.
Okay, so your knees are going to be bent so that the feet come against the floor again. Your hands are gonna come back in towards your body. So hands come down by your hips. And I want you to bring your feet in even closer to you and bend your elbows so that they remain tight to your side, but your hands come up towards the ceiling. Make little fists with your hands and turn your palms towards your legs. Great. So now take a big inhale. Exhale, could you pick your legs up into a tabletop? So knees come right over hips. You can squeeze the thighs together as need be. Now pick up your head, neck, and chest into that little curl. Beautiful. Elbows stay tight to the side, arms and legs straighten out. Legs will go up. So hands come down to the mat, you straighten out, pull it back in. You have 3, just like this. Last one. Pull it in, hold your knees to your chest, give yourself a little hug. And then bring yourself back into that position. So you're kind of like a little dead bug here. You've got those palms towards your thighs, elbows in tight. Beautiful. Now, when you reach everything out, could your legs open and close the width of the mat? Your arms still come all the way down. So reaching out, now bring the legs back together. Now bend your knees in. Good, so think feet stay high on this next one. Open, close, bring it back in. Last one, feet come even higher on this one. There you go. Open, close, bend the knees, bend the elbows, lay your head down. Very nice. We're gonna come into your 100 prep. So we're not doing the full 100, you're only doing 50. It's an inhale for a 5 count and an exhale for a 5 count. What we're doing doesn't change the whole time. So we're gonna start out with you bringing your legs into tabletop and your hands come up to the ceiling. Take a big inhale. Exhale, pick up your head, neck, and chest. Hands come down to about hip height. Turn your palms. You're gonna start pumping your palms towards the floor. So keep those knees in. There you go. So you're inhaling for a 5 count and exhaling for a 5 count. You can keep your palms down the whole time if you want to. You're making it harder on yourself, but that's okay. You're at 30. You have 2 more. Take your chin off your chest, find a little more length. This is your last exhale. And then you're gonna lay everything all the way down on the mat. Eventually we do it to a 100 count, but like 50 seems like plenty today, I would say. So we're gonna switch now to do a little side leg work. So if you'll roll over onto your left side for me, you wanna be able to stack yourself pretty much against the back edge of your mat. Shoulders are over, so it's shoulder over shoulder, hip over hip. Would you like a little ball or do you wanna use your arm for your head? Does that work?
Yep.
Okay, feet come towards your front edge of the mat. And I actually want you to flex your ankles for me. You can use your top hand for balance here. You can make a fist, you can make that little spider tent out of your hands, but I want you to think throughout this whole thing, we're pulling up slightly here so that you're not just slouching down into the mat. So lift your top foot about as high as your hip joint, maybe a little higher. Could you bring it any higher? And then put it back down. You have 5 of these. So shoulders pull onto the back. Could the back of your skull line up with your shoulder blades? Yep. Little lift and lower. We're just getting to 5. Breathe in as you move. And then we're moving on to circles. So you're gonna lift this foot back to about hip height, point that toe, 5 little circles one direction from your hip joint. 3, 4, 5, and if you go one way, you have to go the opposite way. So 5 circles the opposite direction. You're still thinking hip over hip, and then you'll stack that foot back on top of the other one. All right, foot comes up to about hip joint height. Point your toes. You're gonna kick that leg forward at hip height, and then you're gonna flex, pull it back, trying to engage your glute, your hamstring, so bring it any further back. Yep, and then back forward. So you're moving from this hip joint. You'll get some movement in your low back, especially if you have tight hamstrings. We're just trying to initiate from the hip and control what the back does. 3, you get to 5, 4, you get to 5, you'll flex it back, and then you'll bring it to stack on top of your other foot. Okay, we're coming into a développé, which means I'm no dancer, I just know the word, and also that if you have tight hamstrings, it may not be the most beautiful thing you've ever done. Who cares? So you're going to have to externally rotate the top leg. And you're gonna have to bend this knee so that you can drag your foot in towards your own groin and then extend that leg up to the ceiling, point that toe, and take it all the way down. We've got 5 of these, so that was 1. You're dragging the foot in, externally rotating from the hip so that you can take your leg long and then bring it all the way down. Dragging it in, reaching it up, taking your long leg down. This is 4. Good. Could you externally rotate this hip more as you drag it in? There you go. And then reach it up and then take it down. Once you've got 5 on one side, we're just going to flip over to do the other side. So roll over to the other side of the mat. I'm going to move into not kicking distance. And you're going to line yourself up again. So it's hip over hip, shoulder over shoulder. Your head can be supported on your arm, on a ball, on a block, whatever works for you here. And you're gonna start out lifting and lowering that top leg, still thinking that you're pulling up that bottom side from the mat a little bit. So it's 5 lifts and lowers. It's just foot over foot, nothing crazy here. And after that 5th one, you're gonna have to lift it a little bit and point your toe to make your 5 little circles. So we're thinking that the hip moves in the socket, but it doesn't roll you too much forward and back. So you keep that hip over hip stack. 5 circles one way, 5 circles the opposite way. And then you'll stack your feet back on top of each other for a second. And then we're moving on to the kick. So you have to lift that foot to the same height as your hip joint. Yep. So you're pointing that toe, kicking it forward, trying not to round the spine too much, so maybe a little less, and then flex to pull it back. The flex to pull it back is not that you're bending the knee to kick your foot back. You should feel it in your glute, your hamstring. And then maybe that heel comes back into line with your butt. And then you stack your feet again. We're going into the développé on this side. So you're gonna have to externally rotate this top leg from the hip joint to drag it in and straighten it to the ceiling and then bring it all the way down. Give yourself some grace if you have tight hamstrings, because the straightening of the leg may not happen, and then you bring it all the way down. So what if you worked less for the straightening of the leg and more for keeping your hip out of your armpit? Good, and then bring it down. Yep, you got that external rotation, comes up, straightens, comes all the way down. Nice. You get your 5th one, your last one. And then you're done with your side leg series for now. Beautiful. Go ahead, roll yourself onto your stomach. Okay, so your hands are gonna move to be above your head. Your elbows come out to the side, so it's kind of like you're making a diamond shape with your arms. Both of your palms are able to press down into that mat. You're reaching the legs long behind you. If your low back is tight, you can always widen the legs. And there's a little thought of you have to push your pubic bone down into the mat, not just because you can squeeze your butt so hard, but because you can use some of those stomach muscles to do it. So start feeling like you could reach your legs away from you a little bit. Thighs don't have to come off the mat. Feet don't have to come off the mat. You just want to feel that reach. Shoulders start to move away from your ears as you put weight down into your hands. You're lifting your upper back with emphasis on this extension and a pull of that shoulder blade down, and then lay yourself back down. You have 2 more of these little swan preps, just pressing down through the hands to lift, and then coming all the way back down to the mat. Get your last one of these, and then lay it all the way down. Now this time I want you to focus a little more intensely on that leg reach. So the thighs or some portion of the legs might float off the mat, they might not. As you push down through your hands, I want you to lift up to a straight arm. So shoulder blades move down the back, ribs start to pull up, stomach pulls up, pull these down just a little bit, good. And then gently lay yourself back down, letting the shoulders move away from the ears, laying your head back down on the mat. So we're just trying to find this big upper back swan. It's not about the height, it's about here. So can you find more wrap onto my hand? Other direction, that one. And then pull down from here. Good, and then lay yourself all the way back down. Try 2 more. You're just trying to find upper back extension between the shoulder blades versus the biggest lift you could find off the mat. Shoulder blades move down and back. You've got that nice active trap back here. Good. We're not going to go into swan dive today because it puts some unfortunate compression into Brad's low back, but we are going to swim. So arms have to reach out towards the opposite wall from your legs. And as if you were going to do that swan, but on a much smaller state, you're going to start reaching your hands and feet away from you while feeling like you could pull those joints onto your body more tightly. Stomach starts to pull up, head is going to lift, and you're going to alternate these arms and legs doing this nice little swim. Swim like you're not going to drown, Brad. So let those arms move a little bit faster, hands reach long, make them into paddles for 5. Good, keep breathing. 4, 3, 2, 1, lay it down. We're gonna do 1 more for a 10 count. So take a big inhale and exhale, move around as you need to. You start that long reach without feeling like your shoulders move up towards your ears, and you start to swim for 10, 9, keep breathing, 8, 7, 6, head's looking down, 4, 3, 2, 1, lay it down. If you need to sit back into a child's pose or similar from here to get a little stretch, feel free to do so. Actually, I think that's probably a good idea. Now your arms can reach forward or they can reach back towards your heels depending on shoulder health. Take your own choice here. And once you feel like you're able to take a couple good breaths where your rib cage expands, your back expands, and full exhalations, knees can be narrow or wide, again, whatever's gonna feel best in your body. And then you're gonna meet me seated so that we can set up to do a little bit of mermaid. So I'll have you start out with your legs in the Z sit, facing towards one side of your mat. Beautiful. And from here, we're just gonna do a little bit of hip work. So without going too far, can you roll your top hip forward and then back? Like you were gonna maybe pick it up off the mat and put it back down. Just 2 more of those. 3, good, 1 more, 4, lovely. So take one hand down to the mat, the one that's closest to that outside leg. Other hand is gonna come out long, palm towards the ceiling. Beautiful. I just want you to relax that bottom shoulder, that bottom arm, and let yourself take a big side bend up and over. Good. Thinking this hip might stick close to the mat and then come all the way back up. Hand comes off the mat. You're going to do the same thing, other direction. So palm of the other hand comes up, reach up and over. Good. We're going 3 of these to each side. So hand towards your body as you stretch. If you can imagine you're in between 2 panes of glass as you do this, we're just trying to get that really big lateral bend, but only as much as feels good to your body. And then you get your last one each direction, and we're going to add on to it a little bit. So, first hand's going to come palm up towards the ceiling. Other hand is going to have to move a little further out from your hip. You're going to use it like a kickstand. So you're going to shift your weight into your knees, pushing through your hand to lift your hips. Take your hands up and over, get that big side bend. Come all the way back down. Good. Do the same thing 2 more times in this direction. You can push those hips forward a little bit. Lay it down. You might have to adjust where your legs are depending on femur length. No biggie. You get your 3, and then we're going to switch your legs the opposite direction. So you just switch that Z-sit. One leg is in front, one knee is bent back, and we're going for that opposite side, the hip movement first. So if you could roll that hip forward and then try to settle it back down to the mat. Whether it actually touches the mat or not is immaterial. It's just these 4 little movements getting a little more motion in that hip, because I assume you don't sit around and do stuff like this in your free time. Okay. So you've got a hand down on the mat, other hand comes up, just the big side bend first. So hips stay down. And think through relaxing that bottom shoulder away. And come all the way back up. Do the same thing in the opposite direction. 3 to each side, just getting these big side bends. And then we're going to go back to add that little bit of the hip lift. So hand has to come out from your hip a bit so you have some distance. You're going to shift the weight into your knees, push your hips forward, take a big side bend. What if you found more push there? And then come all the way back down. Good. 2. Could you find a little more length through the bottom side on this last one? And then you'll bring yourself all the way down. We're switching to do the thing with the weighted dowel now, where I had to like hold your feet. So give me a second. Yeah. It's a lot of talking. Okay, so hold right there. Thank you. You're so helpful. Okay. You're going to come to kneeling next. If you need additional knee padding, grab it, because why not? So come to kneeling. If possible, if you're by yourself, you're probably going to need to hook your ankles underneath like a couch or something. In this case, you have an assistant, so I will be so helpful. And you're also going to have a weighted bar. Now, I only have a 2-pound weighted bar. Brad probably needs a 10-pound weighted bar, but we do with what we have. So I'm going to come around to the other side to pretend that I am the ankle hook. Start out kneeling tall. So you want to find your hips over your knees, your ribs over your hips, and then your shoulders over your hips. Take your hands out in front of you with that dowel or a weighted bar at about shoulder height. So I just want you to think you're going to take a really articulated cat motion down towards the mat, trying to bring your hands underneath your shoulders. And then doing the same thing on the way back up. So you have to feel this squeeze of the glutes and the push forward of your pubic bone. 2 more, please. Rounding up and over. And then coming all the way up. Good. Think slower on the way down. And then it's almost like you're trying to keep your hips over your knees on the way back up. Good. Let your bar come down for a second. If you want to increase the difficulty here, you can always switch your feet so that your toes are down. It's a nice big stretch. It's not for everybody. Go ahead and flip your feet back. Okay. So take those hands back out, shoulder height for you. Find a little connection of shoulder blades onto the back and let your chin come up off your chest so it's like the back of your head lines up with the back of your shoulder blades. You still have a little bit of your natural curve in your low back. So I'm going to go ahead and apply pressure. Take your hands all the way down to the mat, making that rounded cat shape. Could you pull your hands in towards your knees And then you're going to start to restack your spine, pulling that bar up the front side of your body, trying to stay as far forward as you can over your knees. Lift your head, press the bar out shoulder height. Same thing 2 more times. Rounding up and over, taking the bar down. Move slow as you pull that bar in. Move slow as you have to bend the elbows to lift the bar. Chin comes off your chest, shoulders are on your back, hands come back out in front. Last one like this. Taking it down, pulling it in towards your body, scooping through the belly, pulling up, restacking the spine, head comes up, arms go out in front. Nice. We have to go the opposite direction, but first you get to do the fun part, which is that nice thigh stretch. So you are going to take your hands out shoulder height in front of you, pull your shoulder blades onto your back a little bit, and you're gonna hinge backwards from your knees, thinking you're a plank from knee to shoulders. So chin comes off your chest just a little bit, and then you go all the way back up. 2 more. You don't have to go very far. This is called thigh stretch. You should feel it in your thighs. You'll probably feel it other places. Shoulders try to stay away from the ears and connected on the back while you do this. So you know you can hinge backwards. Can you hinge backwards and pull that bar into your chest? Push the bar down your chest towards the mat and round your spine to help it get there. So look all the way down. Take your hands underneath your shoulders with that bar. So they have to move out. Good. Now, you're going to restack your spine all the way up. So you're pulling your stomach up and in, trying to keep your hands away from your thighs as you roll all the way up. Head comes up, hands come up to shoulder height, right out in front of you. Perfect. So you find that hinge backwards, and then you pull the bar into your chest. Bar goes down your chest, round your head forward, start to follow the bar with your body. Take it down to the mat. It comes out to underneath your shoulders, and then you're working to try to restack your spine all the way back up. Last one, hinging back, row that bar in. Bar goes down, face follows. So start to round yourself up and over. Think weight over the knees to the best of your ability. Hands come underneath shoulders. Roll yourself all the way back up. Wonderful, and the bar comes down. Come lay down on your back. We're gonna play around with some single leg stretch so all the accoutrements can come out of the way. You'll lay on your back. And we're just gonna go into a single leg stretch here. So I want you to pull your right leg in towards your chest. Your left leg is going to continue to reach long. And then you're gonna hover that foot up and off the mat, point your toe. Pick up your head, neck, and chest. It's almost like you're looking at your own thigh. Hands come to your own shin. They're not interlaced so that you can push your hands into your shin, shin into your hands. Switch your legs. Switch your legs. Switch, switch, switch. Pull that one in. Good. Take that left leg to the floor. Flex your ankle, lay your head down. Let your arms come down by your side. Right leg comes up to the ceiling, toe is pointed. Pause for a second. You're gonna think that that left heel stays grounded down into the mat. And you're gonna move from your hip joint to make 3 circles that cross your midline. So you cross your midline and you bring it down and around. Do your best to keep your other toes towards the ceiling. Good. 2 and 3. If you go one way, you gotta go the other way, so do the same thing, other direction. Hip may or may not come up off the mat. We're trying to keep that other foot reasonably well cemented down into the mat. You get your 3, and then you'll bend that knee into your chest. Pick up your head, neck, and chest, point the other toe and lift it off the mat, switch your legs, and switch your legs. Can you keep your shin perpendicular to the floor so it's a little higher? Perfect. 3, 2, stop with the left leg in your hand. Good. Let your right leg come down to the floor. Let your head come down to the floor. Release your leg, arms down by your side, shoulder blades on the back, leg comes up. So really flex your right ankle. You're doing opposite things with your feet, which is confusing. You're crossing that midline for 2. You're crossing that midline for a 3rd circle. You pause and you do the same thing opposite way. Remember, one side of your body is going to be way tighter and weirder when you do this than the others. That's just the way life works. So you get 3 circles, and then you're gonna bend that knee in. And then you're gonna bend the other knee in. And you're gonna pick up your head, neck, and chest, and your hands gently touch your shins. Your ankles are the same height from the floor, hopefully, as your knees. Beautiful. Can you round up a little higher? Good. Thinking it's not from the neck, it's from that upper ab. Good. Arms and legs are both gonna reach long towards the wall and back in. Maybe you inhale, exhale out, inhale. Exhale out, inhale, exhale out. One more, inhale, Exhale out. Pull both knees in and lay your head all the way back down to the mat. We're gonna build on that double leg stretch we just did. So, shins will be perpendicular to the floor, so ankles and knees are roughly the same height. You pick up your head, neck, and chest. Hands come lightly to the shins. Beautiful. Arms and legs reach opposite directions. So your arms come back to frame your ears, your legs reach long and away, and you pull it back in. Good. Think arms come, yep, and back in. Could you keep your head up as you reach the arms back? Good. And back in, and then lay everything down. We're gonna do one more version where your arms circle. So arms and legs reach opposite directions, but the arms then circle out to the sides to come grab the shins when you come back in. So start with everything in with your little balled up position. Big inhale. And circle, pull those legs back in. Good. Could you do 4 more? And 3, good, you're reaching long. You keep breathing while you move, even though it feels like you should hold your breath. And once you get that last one, everything will come lay down on the mat. Roll yourself back over onto your stomach. We're gonna come into some double leg and single leg kicks. So your legs are gonna be together-ish. The toes reach out away from you, and you're gonna stack your hands on your low back, palms towards the ceiling. If they don't touch, you can move them further down or take them apart. Turn your face one direction or the other. Beautiful. So the legs reach long and they come together. You're gonna gently kick both heels towards your butts like a quick little snap kick twice. 1, think even smaller. So when the legs come up, it's a little kick, kick. And then the legs go long. You reach the arms long and you lift your head, neck, and chest. Good. Now you're gonna bend those things in, lay your head down. Same thing, other side. Little kick, kick. Everything goes long. Reach your head away and then switch to the other side. Good. Kick, kick. Everything goes long. Reach, reach, reach. Switch to the other side as you lay it down. Last ones to each side. Reach. A little kick, kick of the heels. Arms reach, legs reach, and then everything lays all the way back down. Bring yourself into a child's pose for a second, and then we're going to move to standing. So you're gonna come stand on one end of your mat with most of the mat stretching out in front of you. Bring your feet so that they're true hip distance apart, not the outside of your hips, but where the heads of your femurs sit in that socket. Hands are gonna come out in front of you, you're looking ahead, and it's as if you're peeling yourself off of a wall to round up and over towards the floor. You soften the knees when you need to. Once you can get those hands towards the floor, walk your hands out 4 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're in a plank. Beautiful. Could you take 3 tricep push-ups here? Good. You just keep looking down at the floor. You're bending the elbows back, and then you're going to walk your hands back in 4 steps. 3, 2, 1. Roll yourself up to standing. We're doing the same thing again. So you're gonna take that standing roll down. You'll soften the knees when you need to get your hands flat. You take those 4 walks out. Great. Now I need you to turn to a side plank. So you're gonna turn and your front leg is forward. Try to get the side of your feet against the mat. Top hand comes up to the ceiling. Pick your hips up higher. Reach your hand up and over like a side bend. Beautiful. Hips go lower, hand comes down towards your hips. Good. Go back up. You have 3 of these. 2. And up. 1 more. Hand comes all the way up. Beautiful. Turn yourself back into that plank. Walk yourself back in those 4 steps. 4, 3, 2, 1. You roll yourself up to standing, finding the weight even between toes and heels. Hands come back out to shoulder height. You've got another roll down here. So it's that big standing roll down. Knees soften when they need to. Hands reach the mat. Walk out 4 steps. You have to take the opposite side plank here. So when you turn, sides of the feet come to the mat, top hand to the ceiling. Good. Hand comes up and overhead, palm towards your head as your hips lift. Hips come down, hand comes down towards your hips. Good. 2 more of these. Big side bend, coming back down. 1 more, coming back down. And then you're gonna find yourself into that plank position. Walk yourself all the way back in. Roll yourself all the way up to standing. And you have survived your very first mat Pilates class, Brad. Good job. That's it.